The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Great to be back with you on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you. We are loaded up, plenty of camping to talk about. Not the kind Elijah likes, so the campfire and bug spray, a fishing pole, and maybe a fifth of beam. But more so the camping down in Texas with Matt Rule. We'll get there. Some camp observations from a loyal listener. We'll talk, we'll kind of not recite. That sounds like I'm making your ears bleed. But we'll weave in some loyal listener Matt's observations from a family member of his that took part in the Iowa State line camp and also the Matt Rule line camp. Total open hour for you.
It should be noted, while we're talking about that Iowa State O-line camp, I went to that one 5-6 years ago now.
Look at you. The last time Nebraska was in a bowl game, Elijah Herbel was sweating away with Coach Campbell.
Yeah, could still call myself an athlete back then, I think is the best way to put it. I will say, Iowa State, they knew how to run a damn O-line camp. My biggest problem with a lot of
right?
Yeah, my biggest problem with O-line camps across the country was, we're going padless. You're going to be wearing like the stupid compression T-shirts, and we're going to see how well you can block off the
And
bat.
fat kids hate that.
Yeah, dude, put me in pads. Let's actually play some football. Mm-hmm. And I loved Iowa State. They let us actually play some football.
Sure.
Got a lot of really good instructional work.
Different perspective on that because Nebraska wasn't padded.
Yes.
So some interesting thoughts from Matt's
Excited to get into that.
Observations. We'll get there. We'll dive into a busy recruiting weekend. Brady Oltman's all over it with how some of the official visits from Florida and Texas and even Nebraska went over the weekend. Is Elijah on panic alert with his Nuggets tied one apiece with the Heat? We'll get there at 4:40. And also an update with some college baseball. How are the regionals playing out? What's super regionals look like? A day to determine that. Numbers to get in, 489-1240, 489-1240. Can also email Chris at hailvarsity.com. Charlie McBride with us in 1 hour, a Monday with Charlie. The Blackshirt Hour continues, bookended by edge rusher Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFLer. So we'll spend some time on that. Can watch the show. You're encouraged to do so. You can listen, as always, on our wonderful affiliates across the state of Nebraska. But also, the video is very real. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel, subscribe to that. Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio. And if you want to get in on Facebook, do so with KFOR or the KFOR Sports Twitter feed. So there we are. Busy weekend for me. We were down in Kansas City, baseball diamond, Plant City, just outside of Kansas City, north by the airport where we were at. The JV Southwest Silverhawks went 2-0-2. I hate ties. Absolutely hate ties. Late Friday afternoon as you and Connor were slaving away, I am thankful for a tie. Junior got the call. You're laughing nervously. Why are you doing that?
Because I know where this story is. I play fantasy baseball. I know where this story is going. You see one of those guys in your fantasy baseball team get the call on a close game in the ninth, and you go, don't blow this for my fantasy baseball team.
Right. Well, how about for all the parents that are illegally gambling? I'm kidding. So Junior got the call. Junior's role is to be a pitcher only. And he has worked hard at it. I am proud of him. I'm still I am proud of him. But he got the call, came in, 2 guys on, 1 down, and they faced these dudes that, they were as big as, I'm gonna absolutely embellish the hell out of this. These guys lift more than Barry Bonds. Kidding. They were big dudes. They were yoked dudes. And long story short here, Junior went in with a 5-2 lead and runners threatening, and they left the game with a 5-5 tie. Let your imagination run wild. So we had a nice scream session in the car, me screaming at him. I'm kidding. We just had a talk, and we'll bounce back next time, hopefully. I made him watch Dennis Eckersley, Kirk Gibson.
Yeah, I need a clarifying question.
There's a little grain of salt. They went in with a 5-2 lead. They did tie the game at 5-5, but it was a little. My heart was going like I'd had 37 Red Bulls.
I need a scene-setting question, really fast. Being a guy who's been around baseball plenty, these big old 16-year-old kids that Junior had to come in and
a few
face.
of them had like forearm tattoos. I kid you not.
Were these the type of kids that are nicknamed Big Country on their high school baseball team, or are they like the 16-year-old Latin American kid, which you're like, how are you as big as you are? You're 6'5" and absolutely yoked. Like
it's like he's an Almonte pitching in the Little League World Series at 13, but he's really 15 with a goatee.
Yes.
No, they were just big dudes.
Okay.
It was 16U, and some 16-year-olds look like they've got a family in a minivan.
Yep.
And some 16-year-olds are popping back acne like the rest of us at 16. So, yeah, he came in, competed well, and got stung down the line, allegedly. There's still some question marks whether the ball was fair or foul down left field.
I trust the umpires can get that call right.
I don't. Selfishly, I don't. So we got in and out. We actually had awful barbecue in Kansas City.
No way.
Yes, we had awful barbecue, and our problem was we did not go to the mainstays that have been suggested and tried and true. We went to another place that was convenient between games, and it was bad when you order burnt ends and it tastes like pulled pork. And you order beef burnt ends, and it was just too sauced, and I'm whining. I'm whining because it was an expensive weekend. It'll be even more expensive therapy-wise.
Did you end up making it, though, the question we've all been wondering, to the Husker night at the K?
Shut that down. Because of our tied situation, we were waiting whether or not if we were going to play that evening. What did I do now? 489-1240. So, yeah, we're back at it, and a week from now, we're in South Dakota. Can email the show, chris@hailvarsity.com. Let's give you a quick rundown on who and what were in Lincoln this past weekend. Again, hailvarsity.com. Brady Oltman's staff writer, just fantastic. Did a great job of kind of covering the recruiting weekend. And the recruiting setup was Florida, Texas, Nebraska. And that is kind of the main areas that they came in for their visits. You had Peyton Morgan, he's a safety out of Pflugerville, Texas, that Nebraska was able to get into Lincoln. Loved his first visit. He says, I shall return. Texas Tech also on his radar, along with Arizona, SMU, and Baylor. But he really kind of set a theme of, wow, by the coaching staff and wow with the family atmosphere. We'll go to the phones here. Who's with us?
Well, really fast, I just need to tell the quick story of the first. We had two callers on the line there. I went to the first one who she was confused. She's like, I'm trying to set my appointment. I'm like, who are you trying to call right now? And she's
probably
like,
a hair care place.
Yeah, she was trying to call a hair salon. And I'm like, you've called a radio station in Lincoln, Nebraska. How can we help you? And she's, have a nice day.
That's happened for 20 years because there's a hair salon place that has a similar number to our old number.
Well, that's good to know. But we have an actual call on the line here. We go to Paul in Lincoln.
Paul, thanks for calling. Go for it.
Hey, well, I do need a cut and color. That's not what this is about. Scholarships. How are we doing numbers-wise? I'm a little worried that we're not going to have enough for the walk-ons that deserve them.
I think the walk-ons that deserve them probably have already been told they're good. I don't think they would. I would not put it past Coach Rule to have that already done. That's my thought. He would not go.
A couple got him a couple of weeks ago, but now we just had another lineman from Utah that got a scholarship. It's like, well, what the heck? How are we doing on the numbers?
As detailed as Coach Rule is with everything, as hands-on as he is with everything, I think they are dotting and crossing the appropriate letters there. I think they'll be fine there. They're not gonna upset the apple cart or be wrong with numbers. I can't guarantee it, but I think they're going to go based on what they need. And you mentioned the Utah lineman. He's a project get, but man, he could be pretty talented with the work they can put in with him. And as far as the walk-ons go, who else are you thinking walk-on wise needs a scholarship?
No idea. I'm always worried about the numbers. Mm-hmm. And I think if we want to have a good, strong walk-on program, we got to make certain that these guys that deserve them are getting them. And I totally trust Coach Rule. He's obviously the best thing that's happened in Nebraska in a generation or two.
No, Paul, I think the numbers game is pretty intricate, but I think Nebraska will be on the right side of it.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Am I okay to go blind faith with that? I mean, you've seen a couple of the walk-ons get the scholarships, and if there's some other guys that pop, I would think they'd get them. But you're going to do what's best for your football team. I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I mean that sincerely, and I think they'll analyze it pretty highly.
I mean, we've seen Matt Rule navigate the scholarship situation through the spring and summer already with being over the limit. I think, he's earned the right to for us to be a little more hands-off with the scholarship situation and say, you know what, Coach Rule's going to do what's best for the team. He's going to do that. I think he's earned that right following how
and I think he'll take care of in-state kids. I don't believe that the in-state head pat is just a show. 489-1240. Continuing on with some of the recruiting, you have some more Texas talent that's been tapped. You've got Morgan I was touching on, Dante Carter. He is out of the Tommy Armstrong region of Cibalo, Texas. He had a big-time visit. He is looking at Vandy, at Washington, and at Texas Tech. It's the second kid that was in this weekend also being hunted by Texas Tech, and you saw what Coach McGuire has got going down there in Red Raider land. So I like some of these comps. Typically, you'd look at Texas Tech post-Leach and go, all right, what kind of player are you going after? If I'm going after the same kid that Coach McGuire is at Texas Tech, I feel good about that for the Nebraska defense.
Yeah, and I think it'd be quite funny if Garrett McGuire were to hop into this recruitment and you have a dad versus son recruiting battle. That'd be a lot of fun.
Let me tell you about Daddy. Can you negatively recruit your father?
Well, let me tell you about my son.
Can you negatively recruit Daddy and still get a Christmas gift?
I'm just imagining Coach Joey McGuire going in there like, you want to hear about the time I had to take my son's keys when he was 16 years old?
You want to hear, right?
Is this the type of kid you can trust your son with?
I think either way, if you got an offer from Nebraska or Texas Tech, you're a heck of a good football player. They see something from you on film. Who's on the horn?
We got Chris on the line.
Chris, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I had the Heat winning in 5 or 6 from the very beginning.
Oh.
You know, they've already beaten 2 teams better than Denver.
Boo.
I'm sorry. I want Denver to win. I do. I don't really like the Heat, but they're so much tougher, play so much better defense. And they've already beaten Milwaukee, who won far more games than Denver. And then they beat Boston, who a lot of people think were the best team in the NBA. And they have 2 of the, big superstars. And I love Jokic, and he's not much on defense, though. And if you take away Murray like they did, there's just it's just going to be tough. And they've done it. They've beaten all these top-notch teams with far more wins than Denver. And I don't quite see why the pundits, are giving the Heat such a hard time and like they got lucky last night or something. This is what they've done, and this is what they're going to do. And I was rooting for that shot to go in at the end with Denver last night. I want them to win, but they don't have it. Look at Miami already beat a team that won the championship a couple of years ago. They beat the team that was in the East in the finals for representing the East last year. I want Denver to win, but I think I've got Miami in 5 or 6.
Chris,
they've got their sharpshooter coming back.
Yeah, we'll see if it holds up. Thanks for the phone call on that. We'll get to Denver and the Heat here in about 20 minutes. But yet,
he wants me to jump the gun on that.
Just don't sleep on what one hot guy and a team of chipped shoulders can do. And that's been Miami's story. That's their coach. And they are kind of fun to watch and root for unless you're a Denver fan. So you frightened me. I did tune into the show Friday a little bit as Elijah Herbel is allergic to the sun as you're rocking that Denver tank top.
Mm-hmm.
Dude,
yeah,
get in. Yeah, you are. I mean, the walls were screaming. They were going blind.
Well, no, I'm good from like the elbow down because that's where the umpire.
Yeah, I know,
comes in.
but you had your Denver jersey on, and it was. I mean, it was Barry Manilow Central in there.
Well, here's the problem. I did not wear my Nuggets jersey yesterday. I wore a Nuggets hat yesterday, and the Nuggets lost. So Wednesday, I think I'm going to have to pull that jersey out of the closet again.
Nick has chimed in and said he's already lost his bet that the Nuggets would sweep. So I would find a way to double down, Nick, and get right with the over-under and reassess Denver in 6, Denver in 7,
this
Heat
series
in 5.
It's far from over.
Yeah, I think this thing may go 7.
Both sides are going to be throwing punches the remainder of this series. If you think the drama's done, it hasn't even started.
It'll be pretty good. More on the recruiting front, more on Rule in Texas. Hail Varsity continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity Radio back with you, presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, open hour for you as we get till 5 o'clock. Hour 2, Blackshirt Hour, Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, a Monday with Charlie, Jay Moore at around 5:25, 489-1240, 489-1240. To get in, can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. So we're talking camps. Nebraska's down in the Houston area tomorrow. They're in Texas today. Rule was in Lincoln with some OVs yesterday. So pretty impressive whirlwind as Nebraska will have another official visit weekend here as we get towards the end of the month with some, they're all high priority, but some really high targets to get into. So Matt, loyal listener to Hail Varsity, appreciate his email. Sent an email in as he was at both camps. He was at Iowa State camp, has a family member attending both. Attended Nebraska's O-line camp, also attended Iowa State's offensive line camp. We'll get to that email in 2 seconds. Who's on the phone?
Roger on the line.
Roger, thanks for calling. Welcome into Hail Varsity. Go ahead.
How you doing?
Good. What do you know?
Well, I was going to give you the advice.
Roger, go for it, my man. You cut out on me. You say something about advice?
I was going to give you some advice when you go on these games with your son.
All right. I got my pen ready, so go for it.
My daughter played softball for 10 years on the same travel league team, and she also pitched. And I understand your tenseness during the game. She pitched she was 16. She pitched in the 18 and under state championship Class A. She started. And, yeah, I was pacing the sideline and everything else. But she hated after the games on our drive home because she knew for 30 minutes, the first 30 minutes was just me going to be asking her why she did certain things.
Don't ask, right? No, I when we were walking out, it was pretty funny. I was like, hey, dude, you competed hard. Sorry it went that way. And he's like, well, that's just, he had a better attitude about it than I did. That said, yeah, I mean, there needs to be some sort of Yeti cup I need to bring with just to calm the nerves. I kind of kid Roger, but yeah, I did not interrogate him. Said your mother's very disappointed in you, but
damn.
Well, clearly she didn't make the trip this weekend.
No, I get it. It was tough on the parents. Is probably harder on the parents nerve-wise than it is on the kids that are playing the game.
Well, it was funny. I said, what do your coaches say? They said, well, don't bean the first batter to load the bases.
It's about sending a message sometimes.
And he's like, Coach, it just didn't break. I didn't mean to beat him. That's not what my plan was. Let's see if we can get everybody a heart attack and load the bases with one out. And the home run hitters coming up. But no, Roger, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm just going to have fun. I'm proud of him. And I'm really excited to see him, have the hard work pay off in performance and just go compete. You're going to get beat in baseball like that. His team's incredible. Got a bunch of good teammates, got a bunch of good coaches, so it'll work out. But yeah, that was tough. And I was like, well, hey, we didn't lose, because he technically could have walked off. They could have got a walk off on him. At least it was one of those stupid ties.
So, well, you take it with a grain of salt, because in a few years you'll both be sitting around and laughing about it.
No, absolutely. Remember that time in Kansas City where you cost me $1,000 that weekend and you blew the game? Yeah, I'm kidding. Roger, appreciate it. Appreciate the phone call. Yep, 489-1240.
What you got to start doing is you got to start using all this years in sports media as experience, and after good outings, you got to start having post-game interviews with the winning pitcher. I'm here with Carson Schmidt here at Kansas City baseball tournament after a dominant performance on the mound. Carson, what do you see out there?
We're going to prepare you for tough moments in life, son. We're going to sit down and do a 30-minute, 60-minute style interview on allowing the tying run to score. Oh, he's a good kid. He's probably waiting outside for me. He's waiting outside for me with a tire iron, and he's going to attack the old man. So the other thing that happened this weekend that kind of blew the hair back was, and I'm fine with people, if you want to dress up in leather and put a leash around yourself and crawl like you're a pet cat or a dog, whatever. But that was going on in our hotel. There was some sort of, what's it called? Cosplay.
Oh, yeah.
Thing going, where people were dressed up like the princess in Super Mario Brothers. There was folks that had leather skirts and biker vests with piercings and shaved heads, and then they'd throw a wig on. So it was a different deal. It was. You can't make this up. And like the 11th floor was all blocked off. No visitors allowed past 11 p.m. for folks. So there was that. But what was cool is some of the folks that like to play dress up went out into the parking lot with the baseball team, and they all made a makeshift wiffle ball yard.
Oh.
They found a 2x4.5 bottle of Gatorade, and that's what they used as the ball. And the kids that are 15, 16 years old, they went and played.
That's
like
cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. I was like, so who helped you? I was like, well, I don't remember the guy's name, but he said he was in construction, and the guy had 3 missing fingers, Dad. It's like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, but he was in construction, and he helped us do the base path, so... It was an intriguing weekend.
You should have employed some of those people to be distractions behind the plate. Like the pitcher's line of sight right behind the batter. Some people on a leash and whatnot, all wearing their crazy costumes. You should have employed them as a way to help the baseball team.
Yeah, that's about it.
Imagine being a pitcher and having to see some of that behind the batter. That'd be the ultimate distraction.
Well, back to the email. Sorry, we've been just jumping everywhere.
Yeah, we're finally getting back to Matt. Matt's been patiently waiting, like, when are they getting to this? When are they getting to this? We start, and then somebody calls.
Matt is like, his nephew's attending the defensive line camp. But the offensive line observations, here we go. So Matt writes in, Chris at HailVarsity.com. I was at camp this weekend at both Nebraska and Iowa State. Here's what I observed. Matt says, first, I want to say that when the camps were announced, I was a little skeptical that Coach Rule was not going to have a padded pipeline camp. I'm not now. More on that later. But Iowa State was a padded O-line and a padded D-line only. Long story short, they ran these guys through group drills, fully kitted up for several hours with very little one-on-one coaching. They had about 10 minutes of call-outs at the 50-yard line, which was really the coaches putting a few of their favorites up there. Then they ran more drills, fully padded. These guys were all wore out, probably about 3.5 hours. And when they went in for their one-on-one with each other, this was maybe for about 15 minutes. That was Iowa State's camp. Nebraska, their camp, ran through all the agility testing and the measurements as they came in very organized. Once in position groups, they had them run some more drills, but they had the players putting hands on each other right away. They also had current Husker players getting in there coaching, not just making comments like the day before at the Iowa State camp. After a short break, there was more one-on-one training with the coaches. Then there was a good 45 minutes where it was O-line versus the D-line. I'll tell you what they should have had pads on because they would have been popping. I understand why they didn't have pads. It forced everyone to try and use their hands for better technique instead of just popping the other guy with their pads or just grabbing pads in a jersey. It showed who wasn't scared to stick their nose or face in the fan. I'm surprised everyone came out with all their teeth. Pretty good stuff. I have more faith after that that they'll be able to evaluate linemen like that and find some good players. So the technique topic you hear a lot about from Coach Rule, from Coach White, from the line coaches, from Coach Potroast, that can be a difference maker. How good can you get technique-wise? And we hear Coach McBride talk about it. We hear Searles talk about it. We've heard other coaches and players talk about and Jay Moore, technique, but it is really hand-to-hand combat. Can you get your placement? Can you get the leverage? Can you use your strength? And yeah, the pads will pop, but how adjusted are you early, or how well adjusted do you get in your career at the college level to using your hands? You know it firsthand because you got to strike first, especially playing offensive tackle like you did. But I liked his take on Nebraska's one-on-one time with individual kids versus the group aspect. And that's how you're going to get better, is improving your technique and getting the good, bad, and the ugly discussed at these camps, the feedback you need.
And sounds a hell of a lot different than my experience at Nebraska's camp, so I will lay it out with that. I'd always think that football is a game that is played in pads, and you should be doing your work in pads. That's my personal opinion. I know coaches out there probably know a hell of a lot more than me. There's reasons why they do it. I will say you never show up there on a Friday night or a Saturday once you get to college and play without pads on. That never happens. I don't understand. You can get work done without pads in, but if you want to get a real sense of who a kid is, especially with these camps are going on, if you're going to use them as recruiting, I think being in pads is very important. But like my experience at Nebraska's O-line, D-line camp was a whole bunch of 40-yard dashes and agility work and testing numbers. And then we got split off. I think we got about 20 minutes with Coach Kavanaugh and a couple of the Husker linemen at the time.
Cav's good O-line coach.
And then they brought us back into the stadium, and we did some one-on-ones without pads, no run blocking or anything like that, just one-on-one pass rushing for about 25, 30 minutes, and that was it. That was the camp. So that camp already sounds a hell of a lot better than how it was for me under Mike Riley. And I will say that there's not one correct way to run a camp, as I've kind of laid out. There's different reasons, different coaches do different things. I don't think that one-on-one coaching is necessarily the be-all, end-all. Like, oh, that guy's doing a great job. He pulled that kid aside for one-on-one time. Not necessarily perfect, but it is a lot better than what I thought my experience was at Nebraska's camp. I'll say that.
No, that's good. That's well-informed there. Appreciate Matt's email as we'll dive into some more recruiting thoughts. Interesting with Nebraska as they're down in Texas, because that is pay dirt for the Big Red. We'll have some more thoughts on some of the recruiting names in town, maybe some NBA stuff. Coach McBride's 25 minutes away. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Elijah, how do you feel about recruiting and how it's shifted? The reality is it's official visits now, or you'll have some unofficial visits this summer. I think Nebraska's done a great job of getting kids to campus repeatedly. Now, do you come during the summertime, during the camp circuit? Are you taking your official then, or are you going to come back for a game atmosphere? Spring games have been big for Nebraska because it's a simulation. It's still 70,000, 60,000, and it's a showcase. Now, game day atmosphere is a whole different ball game, and it's more difficult to get kids in during their football season. And if you get a night game in October that's just perfect, think back to Michigan, right? The almost was Michigan game in 2021. That'd be cool. You have a night game here in September. I believe it's against Northern Illinois. That's a 6 o'clock ball game. Mm-hmm. You might get a second 6 p.m.er with Louisiana Tech. I would think that's probably a BTN game. So you go that route, but you're kind of at the mercy of the networks for the payday with some of these kickoff times, i.e. going on Thursday with Minnesota, which I think is great. Going on Friday, though, with Illinois. If I'm Brett Bielema and I got Nebraska coming back to town, I'm a little PO'd that Friday night that's Friday Night Lights in the state of Illinois for high school. You'll have other opportunities, but it's still a helmet game. Mm-hmm. I don't know that Illinois is traditionally up there, but Nebraska's a helmet game, but yet they're being placed on a Friday night. So each to their own, and you got to kind of roll with the punches. But I like what Nebraska's done. I mean, they've got ties and connections down in Florida. They're working. Clearly, Texas, boots are on the ground in Texas the next 3 days for the satellite camps. One's at Baylor, which is really cool for Rule and the Houston area. And then they're really going after a bunch of 3-star guys that have some offers. And the other part of this, too, how much attention do you pay, or are you going to pay, with who else is recruiting the kid? To me, for years, it was Ty Robinson, case in point. Ty Robinson was recruited by Alabama. There are some SEC schools. You look at the linemen that are on Nebraska's roster now. Who else recruited the Ben Harts and Corcorans of the world? Well, a lot. Not just your Wisconsin, your Iowas, your Minnesotas, but also, I mean, you had some Bama interest. You had some big-time name school interest level. So that always impresses if you get a kid that at least got an offer, an interest from Alabama or from LSU or from Texas. You don't usually win those recruiting battles if you're Nebraska recently. And you also have a situation where, okay, Nebraska's been first or second on a lot of kids, and then their recruitment blows up just because of where the value is. And, it really speaks to me. I think Joey McGuire's a hell of a talent evaluator. I think Matt Rule's a hell of a talent evaluator. And the more those two teams go head to head, I think you're going to see other teams jump on board. Let's look at Nebraska's list, right? And I think that's a reality. I think Mario Buford is a stud ball player. Nebraska's got the inside track, you would hope, because Marquise is here. But you also have Michigan State and Penn State that are really hot on his trail as well. The talent out of DeSoto, Texas. So he's got officials to Michigan State, Penn State. I don't know Mario as much, but you would hope Marquise could help put in a good word on field and off field for his little bro to get another Buford in Nebraska's secondary.
Well, what's interesting about Buford, I think it was just from yesterday, or maybe earlier this morning, he announced a commitment date coming a little bit later this week.
So if that's the case, then later this week would be before you head to Penn State and Michigan State.
Yeah, and that is a tweet that he has now since taken down. So. Interesting to look at there. But what I'll say back to your original point just about the style of Nebraska's recruiting is, do you worry about the summer visits? It feels much more like Nebraska uses the fans' Memorial Stadium, what Lincoln is on a game day, as a way to get a foot in the door. Like, come for the spring game, that's your foot in the door. You'll see what Nebraska's all about. But the be-all, end-all of Matt Rule's recruiting styles relationships.
It's going to be time at the training table. It's going to be time in my office, and let's work on getting to know you getting to know me.
It's essentially saying, 90,000 fans in red will be cheering you on Saturdays. That's awesome. Like, we love that. We're going to use that as a part of our pitch. It's going to be great to play in front of those fans. But that is 7 Saturdays out of your year, 7 days a year you're playing in front of the 90,000. Yeah, it's a big advantage with NIL and things like that. But what are you going to be doing for the other 350 plus days of the year? You're going to be in the football offices. You're going to be with your teammates. You're going to be spending time around the coaching staff. So yeah, sure. If you love the 90,000, awesome. But come check it out in the summertime. Come see what our day-to-day operations are like. Come see what your daily life is going to be like as a Husker. That's what we're going to sell you on. Well, what's your relationship like with your position coach? What's your relationship going to be like with the head coach? That's what Nebraska is selling right now, as opposed to, we have a lot of fans that support us and you're going to be real popular around here. It's not that anymore. This is what we see for you, and this is what your day-to-day life is going to be as a Husker. And you're going to have a great relationship with the head coach, with your position coach, with your teammates. That is the bigger selling point right now with Nebraska's recruiting. It feels like from the outside looking in. No,
and that's well put, and that's how it's got to be. I mean, you go through all the crap for those 7 home Saturdays, for those 12 Saturdays over 3, 4, 5 years. And there's the first year, in a lot of instances, you're redshirting or you're developing, and your role isn't what you're used to. And let's say you're coming from Texas or Florida or California or even Kansas City or even in-state. That's a big adjustment. And sizing somebody up with a personality and sizing them up from what makes you tick, fit-wise, that's gonna really do wonders. You would hope, from an attrition standpoint. If you get someone to lock in with you and be like-minded and really be here for the right reasons and put up with the grind and the suck that it is going to take to get good again, and then be along for that ride and the ups and downs that is football and college life, that's really the way to go about it. I mean, you can get swept up in the moment and then have some buyer's remorse. Mm-hmm. For sure, that happens in the game of recruiting a lot. But it sounds to me like it's a similar approach to the Smarts and the Sabins of the world, where, all right, it's not going to be a lot of fun. It's going to cost you a lot of time, effort, and heart. But if you're willing to do it, man, you'll come out the other end as a guy that can go play Sundays. Best case, worst case, you're going to have a degree or maybe a couple of degrees, and you'll be able to be set up for life with what you want to do professionally. Simply put, there's a lot of schools around the country that get a hell of a lot of fans in there every single Saturday. What sets you apart from those schools? Matt Rule, his vision is the family environment in Nebraska and the relationships that he's building with recruits. Nope, set apart. That's the way to be. We'll wind down this first hour. It's Hail Varsity presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, lock in Charlie McBride, Mr. Blackshirt on Monday with Charlie, 10 minutes away. And then Jay Moore, Blackshirt Hour, Part 2. We'll get caught up with Jay Bird, see how his weekend was, thoughts on the defense, all sorts of things happening over the weekend. And your Miami Heat fell last night. My Denver Nuggets fell. Well, you're not betting on Miami? You're not jumping on the hot thing? No, I have too much emotionally invested in this series already based on the fact that I've been a Nuggets fan my entire life. I have seen so much failure and pain in my days. I didn't need it to have any more sort of investment in this series. I'm already going to be stressed enough. No emotional hedge bets from Elijah Herbel. Okay. Well, we can certainly do a steak and a beer, to make you feel better about things. Yeah. But yeah, what's phenomenal about Miami, as I give them the kiss of death here, is how well they've scouted, how well they've done with the undrafted free agent portion, and it's the chip on the shoulder. It's a far cry 10 years ago from the other Miami teams that won titles. You went out and you recruited, you raided, you got LeBron to South Beach, and it went the way it went. That's a different look for Miami. You have to respect Spoelstra, don't you?
Oh yeah, that's
the way he's climbed the ladder as a video assistant to a right hand guy for Pat Riley.
That's a top 2 coach in the NBA. It's him and Popovich, 1A, 1B.
Agreed.
As simple as that.
Agreed. What do you think of Denver's coach losing it on his team post game? Losing it's a bit strong, but he was absolutely furious at their defensive performance.
Deservedly so. It was
double-digit leads.
They weren't locked in for. I'll just say that performance from the Nuggets was the worst I have seen from them in the postseason thus far. That's not the time to have it. You can't have it in front of the home fans in the NBA Finals. It's if you go on the road in Game 3 up 2-0, and
you have a stinker, it is what it is.
It is what it is. You can live with that. You're not going to be happy with that as a coach. You can live with it and say, okay, it's on to Game 4. It happens on the road. You can't go in and put up a lazy defensive performance in front of the home fans in Game 2 of the NBA Finals and expect that everything's just going to be A-okay. Is Michael Malone as angry as he made it seem in his post-game presser? No, he's trying to go light a fire under his team and say, what the hell are we doing here? Mm-hmm. Like, you can't play like that and expect to win, which is very true. As we had, I can't remember who called in back in hour 1 and mentioned this.
Chris.
It was Chris, thank you. The Nuggets had a pedestrian 3.5 quarters from Jamal Murray. A lot of the other role guys weren't hitting their shots. So whenever it comes down to Jokic just playing offensively, you need to at least lock in on the defensive end of the floor. If things aren't going well for you offensively, at least lock in, keep it a low-scoring game, give yourself a chance with Jokic. If you're going to be giving up 36 points in the fourth quarter, whenever your offense isn't firing on all cylinders, you deserve to lose that game. That's Michael Malone just going up to the post-game presser and saying, you know what, we deserve to lose that game. We all know why we lost that game. We didn't give enough effort. Miami was more physical. They were more intense than us, and we lost the game because of that. He's 100% right.
So right now, as it sits in your gut, do you feel better about a bounce back because of how that fourth quarter went? Do you think they have a little extra giddy up for this Game 3?
They don't. This comes from the Two Towers, Lord of the Rings. They
never saw it.
They don't tell great stories unless there's a shadow of darkness that falls over the story. Unless things don't go your way and you bounce back. That's how great stories are made. Go watch Sam's speech to Frodo at the end of the Two Towers and you'll get it.
Elijah Herbel went Lord of the Rings. It's going to be okay. Reminder to get buckled up, hands on the wheel, eyes and mind straight ahead. The driver has one job: to drive. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. As we get the Blackshirt Hour started with Mr. Blackshirt himself, a Monday with Charlie. Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, joins us. We say hi to Coach on a Monday. Coach, how was the weekend? Thanks for the time. Coach McBride, do we have you, bud?
Yeah, I'm alive.
Good to spend time. I wanted to just say to you, thanks so much for reaching out, Coach. We appreciate you doing that this weekend. So
yeah, I'm so busy.
Well, you know what I mean. Just very kind of you.
I got a T-shirt. It says, "I'm busy doing nothing."
I don't think you do a lot of nothing, though. It seems like you're always doing something, some sort of upkeep, or maybe you're catching all the fish, or you're hosting the grandkids, or you're putting something on the grill. I mean, I think you keep busy doing nothing, right?
Yeah, I keep busy. Yeah. I spend part of my weekend watering the next door neighbor's lawn because they weren't here, and they put some sod down. So
oh, wow.
They call me to water it twice a day. Oh.
You want to start watering my lawn too?
How's the yard look? Because Elijah's been whining about his front yard for a while.
I'm gonna tell you, that yard looks really good today. I mean, I went and looked at it. It went from when it was but they're still. I'm still watering it. They're not here yet, so. Anyway, that's fun.
Their water bill, not yours. You're all right.
They dig their own wells. Everybody has their own well.
Oh wow!
So it's not so. Yeah, and we're pretty set. We have so much rain and stuff that it's in snow that it keeps it pretty healthy.
That is good. Charlie McBride's with us. Coach, we're getting closer to it. We just got into June, so summer workouts are underway, and I want to get your take on things with as many good teams as Nebraska had while you were there. What stuck out to you about some of the special teams, the teams that had kind of over that top success during the summer workouts? I mean, how did some of those summer leaders really emerge and push the rest of the crew?
Well, the older guys really did a good job of coaching the younger guys as far as effort. One thing they coached them is don't ever take anything for granted. And it's a whole new year. Forget about what happened, and and they really work hard. I mean, in the off season, and it was really a lot of conditioning, probably more than. And they threw and did things, but they really worked on their conditioning and stuff like that. And we ran almost maybe 3 to 4 days after practice. And we run 50s across the field, and basically it starts out if you got a guy not running, then we just add another one to it. And so Coach Osborne ran that show, so they couldn't get mad at us, but. It was a good thing, and then we went and we stretched after that, in each individual group, and kids got to talk to each other. But there was one guy that usually took over the circle. We had him in a circle and did a certain amount of stretching exercises that they were given, and then sometimes in the early spring. A lot of the guys hit the cold water, tubs. We had a few of those tubs out. Of course, the offensive line, they always like to have a swimming pool, So some people had a junior swimming pool, one of those plastic round pools, filled it with ice, and they all went over there and sat in that thing. It was a joke, but they actually did sit in it, and it was full of ice and cold, so it was kind of fun, and usually the last day we had something like most people do, watermelon or stuff like that, and I think one of the things that, they wanted, what changed our whole outlook on bowl games was the early practices. And when we went to bowl games, we used to not practice till 1 or 2 o'clock, sometimes 3. And we got away from that and practiced it early, like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, real early. And therefore, we had our meetings afterwards, and we had, I think we won most of our bowl games from that point on. Because we had hit a spurt there. There was only about 6. We lost about 6 in a row.
Coach, when it came to the camaraderie with the team, I mean that was pretty real. I mean, you wanted to spend time with your older classmen, but also the younger kids, and it was pretty common to have cookouts or pool time or just even on the bowl trips, time with the kids, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I tell you, here's the thing that I used to see that you talk about having a leader, and it seemed like when you look around, and you watch them, and you really can't communicate with them. Mm-hmm. You know, in the summer, you can say hello, goodbye, you know, and that, but you can't do anything. We couldn't do anything, but you saw some of the younger players emerge as leaders or start to do some things where you knew that kid's going to be a leader. The older guys did a good job, and what happened with that group thing at the end, where you had a guy running the stretching, you developed leaders. You know, kids. You had one at each position instead of having just one guy or two guys that were their big leaders. I remember we had leaders at every position we had, and there was it made it a little easier on the coaches, but it also made it easier on them too. And you know, because they really worked together as a group, I think a lot harder.
Coach Charlie McBride's with us here. It's Hail Varsity Radio. And, Coach, whenever you talk about that leadership within the team, it's got to be important during what feels like a long offseason. Whenever you're in the middle of the offseason, it feels like it's just never going to end, but then football season rolls around. And at what point could you sense it within the team that they felt like there was some pressure to get things done because that season felt like it was getting closer and closer? We're into the summer months now where fans start feeling that, you know what, fall's right around the corner. When does the team start feeling that?
Yeah, I think, you know, they had a chance to get some time off just before a lot of them went home and came back for the start of the season, you know, and I think that when they came back, that's when you kind of saw, because, and again, it was our communication that we didn't have with them, where we had to find out what really happened in some ways. Now, the weight coaches did a great job. I mean, you know, of that, and told us about kids that are really showing it and things like that. But I think when you start to realize all the things that happened in the summer, you know, when you think back, it all started in the weight room in the winter. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, because guys got to know each other, and with this portal thing now, you know, it's important that you get to know each other. I made a point to the players one time. I said, I'll bet you some of you guys have never talked to some of these freshmen or younger players that are here. And, you know, and I kind of said, I want you to make it a point to go introduce yourself to them. Let them. Why do you do that? Because then you make them feel part of the team. Mm-hmm. You make them feel wanted. You know, a lot of times they just wander around as a group, and you know, they never even talk to an older guy and things like that. I know I felt that way when I was playing. You know, I didn't know, you know, some of the older guys at all. And I think that it worked out pretty good.
Charlie McBride's with us a Monday with Charlie. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Nick wrote in and was wondering if you got a tattoo. There was a video posted by Adam Carricker, and he was talking about the fact that if you won a certain game, that it sounds like the Peter boys kept you at your word. Did you get a tattoo?
Yeah, I was, this is a little unbelievable, but I had a couple of the fathers tell me that they were going to hang me if I didn't get one.
Hold on a minute. Or you had players' dads threatening you.
I tried to put it off. I tried to make them forget it, but the idea of the whole thing was that there were a few guys getting tattoos and a couple of pierced ears and pierced, I don't know, this stuff, and I got a little upset, you know, and told them, I said, if one of your parents calls me and starts talking to that about me, I said, I'm going to have a fit. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so, but most of the time it was always, you know, the Wistroms and the you know, the Christian and those guys. Mm-hmm. they were always doing something. But actually, when you look at them, they only have a tattoo. I mean, Christian and Jason had a tattoo that said Peterbilt. Mm-hmm. A little tattoo, and So I went home, told my wife I've got to get a tattoo. So I found out from one of our film guys where a tattoo guy was, and went down and told him what to do, and he did it. Only I told her it was only going to be about as big as a quarter. It may be about as big as a softball. I haven't seen it in a long years.
So what did you get, and where did you get it?
Well, I got a tattoo with a football helmet with a skeleton, and the skeleton was really a good tattoo. It's kind of spread out a little now, and it had black shirts, and
sure.
I think the guy put bad to the bone underneath it, which I didn't plan on, but so I had that stuff, and but it's really interesting as you get older. Then I had the 3 years that we won national championships, and it's all kind of smudgy and stuff, but it's funny when you go to a new doctor, there is some conversation sometimes, about it.
What is that?
I tell the first person, I said, hey, ask me, where'd you get the tattoo? I said, well, when I was in prison, a guy gave it to me. Then they don't ask any questions anymore.
What you don't want is your doctor responding, oh, I was in that wing, right?
That's right.
Coach, what does Mrs. McBride think of the tattoo?
Oh, she had a hemorrhage. And she cried. What for? I said, why are you crying? You don't have to look at it. I'm not going to see it. I put it on my back of my shoulder, and I don't ever know what it looks like. And my son lost one of his really close friends, and his name was Campbell, and his nickname was Soup.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got just a tattoo that has in script.
Sure.
Soup spelled SOOP. And last year he said, Dad, we ought to go get our tattoos cleaned up. I said, I'm going to pass on that baby, too.
Come back with another one. Well, there we go. We got the lowdown. Coach McBride got the black shirt tattoo on that back shoulder with the national championship dates. Did Jason and Grant go with you?
No, they came in one night, and what happened was I went to the meeting in the morning. We were having an early meeting, like about 7:15, and I turned the film on and sat down, and I looked, and there were two heads missing. I was sitting back, and their two heads were missing. I turned the lights on. I told the manager, if you don't get them here, you're fired. And you tell those guys if they aren't here in 5 minutes that they're not going to practice today, okay? So they came up and they had their blue jeans on, no shirts, no socks, and one of them had a patch over his eye, kind of over his eyebrow.
Oh, okay.
And so I tore that off, and it was he had his
eyebrow.
Yeah, I guess that's what you'd call it, eyebrow, with a round circle ring type thing in it. And then that guy said to the other one, "You show him what you got," and he stuck his tongue out and he had his tongue pierced. So that ended it for me. I mean, I was ready to flip out.
Coach,
I figured, let him go.
We'll talk more next week, Coach. This was fun. Thank you so much.
Sure. I hope I'm around.
Take care,
I'm going
Coach.
to go tomorrow and find out some stuff up at Ann Arbor, so we'll see what goes on.
All right, Coach. You take care. Thanks again.
Okay, you bet. Okay, bye now.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red, an NFL vet.
Is Dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it at Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency, the Blackshirt Hour. Here is Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFLer, and of course, co-host Big Red Wrap-Up at JMoore44 on Twitter. Jay, how's the weekend? Thanks for spending a few minutes with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, boys. Weekend was good. Weekend was busy. Played a little golf. Did some stuff around the house. So all in all, that was I consider that a win.
It is a win. Did you win on the course?
Far from that.
Really?
Didn't have my best stuff, and then kind of played a little hurt on Sunday. I'll say that. I'm dealing with a little hip issue. Probably shouldn't have played, but it was at a tournament, and I was like, you know what? I can work through it. I probably should have bailed. I'm a hurting unit this morning. Sometimes I'm too stubborn and hard-headed, but it is what it is. Gave her hell, and now I've already been to a chiropractor, a physical therapist, and done a cryotherapy treatment today. So I'm trying to get better.
So is this one of those things where now you can feel whenever the weather's about to change through your hip? Have you reached that point?
We're getting there. I do turn 40 this year, so I think officially that's where I'm headed. It's not fun by any means, but I'm starting to feel the effects of the wear and tear from football and lifting all those weights and doing all that stuff. I think it's finally starting to catch up with me, and I just don't like it.
On the topic of health, that's a big thing for Coach Rule. He wants health and availability to be real. How many games did you go out there not injured but hurt? What was the wear and tear like for you?
Well, there's always a rule, the healthiest you ever were was day one of fall camp. That's the healthiest you're going to be. So you always were dealing with something. No one was ever 100% physical. I mean, if you got to, halfway through the season, you're 90% healthy, I think that's a win. There's always something, and it just depends on your position. Wide receivers and DBs, they might, deal with more hamstring issues that are tough to play through. Bigger guys like us, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, we kind of work through that for the most part. We're dealing our stuff that, that I dealt with is more, shoulders and neck and back and hands and wrist and elbows and all that stuff. So it just kind of depends, but you work through it. Modern medicine is pretty amazing in what they can get you through. In some games, remember times where you go in and you'd be hurting and they'd give you that special cocktail and you'd be good for about 4 or 5 hours. And then after the game, you'd wake up in the middle of the night wanting to, scream bloody murder, and you couldn't wait to get into the training room in the morning just to get some treatment on it because it hurt like hell. But it didn't hurt in the game, so that worked. That
was the window of opportunity. Jay Moore is with us. So names came out today for the College Football Hall of Fame 2024. 2 names you're really familiar with: Frank Solich on the ballot, Danny Woodhead on the ballot. And I know Danny pretty much won the Heisman or the Walter Payton Award back-to-back years at Chadron. And then there's Coach Solich, not only what he did at Ohio, but there's a lot of credit for really great work in Lincoln. It's a long list. Only a few make it, but pretty cool to have two Nebraskans on this list for an opportunity to get in the Hall.
Yeah, I'm super happy for Coach Solich. Seems like now he's retired. He's kind of come to the forefront here on a lot of things. We obviously we celebrate him at the spring games, but happy for him to get nominated. Definitely deserves that credit, and hopefully he gets in. And I mean, he's the last coach who's won a conference championship at Nebraska. so that's I know that's sad to say, but I say it on here a lot. But it is what it is, and obviously what he was able to do at Ohio, turning that program around and winning all those MAC championships all those years, and getting them to bowl games, which isn't an easy task. In that conference. So definitely well deserved for him. And then Danny, I didn't know Danny personally while we were both playing, but just through golf, we've become really, really good friends. Usually play a handful of times with him throughout the year. And actually just him and I both played in the in a tournament this weekend, and he kicked my butt. So he should get in, I would think. I don't know what the certain criteria is for Division I, Division II, but man, he was. What is the Harlan Hill?
Yes.
Is that the trophy? Yeah. So that's the Heisman of Division II. I mean, he won that a couple times, and then you see his career in the NFL playing, almost 10 years, I believe, with the Patriots and Chargers and Ravens. So happy for both those guys. Always happy when you can get two Nebraskans, all the credit and let people know, how good they were back in their day.
And with Danny, you think about his prime is about a 2-year stretch at Shadron State where every single week it felt like, me as a kid growing up, you're going to Facebook or whatever news service you get, and it's not how many yards did Danny Woodhead rush for this week. It was how many hundreds of yards did Danny Woodhead rush for this week. His peak at Shadron State was just incredible, and I think it's easy to forget about because it wasn't Division I, but what he was doing on a week-in, week-out basis was just, it was something to behold.
Yeah, he just, I don't know what his career rushing average was at Shadron, but it just seems like he was going over 2 bills every game and sometimes pushing 3, consistently. And he's just, the dude he's a bulldog, man. He's tough, obviously built low to the ground, but just tough and runs hard and is smart too. Was a very smart player. So I don't know if people give him a whole lot of credit for that, but obviously his pass catching ability as well. The backfield is really, really good. So his career that he had, obviously to see what it became in the NFL. You don't see too many Division II athletes that, play as long as he did and had as much success as he did, but he was one of the better ones to ever do it, especially coming out of D2.
I got to ask you got to practice against that Nebraska backfield every day. You had the Marlon Lucky hype, and Marlon had a good career. Brandon Jackson, I think, went third round to Green Bay. B-Jax was special. It didn't feel like he got as many carries, but when he got in, he got his money's worth. How would Danny have fit into that running back room?
I feel like he would have fit in very well, especially as many times we like to throw to the back of the backfield. Marlon Lucky in 2007, it was check down central to him, or just having choice routes. I think even Corey Ross did a really good job of kind of hitting choice routes over the middle too. So I think he would have done really, really well in this offense. They would have featured him, and I know in the West Coast, and you thinking back in the Big 12, you need a bigger guy to carry the load and to be a first and second down back, but he could have done it in the Big 12. There would have been no doubt about that. And just his ability to catch the ball in the backfield, his toughness, his athletic ability, he would have fit in just fine as another option. Just as hard. His measurables weren't to what they want, and even in the NFL. He was an undrafted free agent, in the NFL. But you can't teach heart, you can't teach toughness and patience, and just the ability to work through all the BS you have to do as an undrafted free agent. He did it and improved himself, and he's one of the best players ever come out of the state of Nebraska.
Jay Moore is with us, a few minutes, Hail Varsity Radio.
And quickly here, Schmidty, I pulled up some of the stats. Danny Woodhead, his junior season, averaged 212 rushing yards per game. That was on 8.01 yards per carry. Junior season, the kind of numbers we're talking here are just absolutely bonkers. And Jay, to play some revisionist history here, if this is modern college football, Danny Woodhead's putting up these numbers in. From your conversations with him, do you think he would have hit the portal? Do you think he would have tried to come to Nebraska from Shadron State? Because you would have had that opportunity in college football in 2023.
Oh, without a doubt. Oh, for sure. He'd had all the, I don't want to say all the options in the world, but I would think Nebraska would have been looking at him. But you got to look at other schools around locally, the Kansas K-States, Iowa States, maybe a Colorado. Schools like that, I think would have been all over him if this is, 2023 and the NIL and the transfer portal's open. Someone's coming to get him and paying him some money to come do that in their back. It's still, I know it's Division II, but it's like, man, this dude is killing people week in and week out in Division II. We'll take him and we'll bet on him, and we you would love to have him in the offense.
Jay, when we talk Nebraska football 2023, we're going to blink and it's going to be media days. We're going to blink and it's going to be Fleck v. Rule for that Big Ten opener. And you see the prognostications that windows between 5 and 7 for Nebraska. You've seen some teams recently. Think about Michigan State. That was kind of where their window was when Mel hit the portal lottery, and they go 11-2. So that's a big-time dream season. But when we talk about Nebraska, if they're to go over and really have a surprise season in a good way, there's going to be a lot of factors, but what's the key factor in your opinion?
We'll get up to a good start. Somehow you can go 4-0, which I think you definitely can do. I think that is huge. I don't think they're going to beat Michigan. As long I'm just being a realist. Then you look at you have to go to Illinois on a Friday night. Then you get Northwestern, Purdue, Michigan State. So let's see here. You got Maryland, Wisconsin, Iowa. So if they get up to a good start, that's a huge thing. We've got off to good starts before. Then you get halfway through the season, you get some injuries, and things get dragged down a little bit. But they can beat Minnesota. They can definitely beat Colorado, and obviously you get Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech. So get up to a good start, and that just breeds confidence and staying healthy. That's part of the ordeal as well. But if they can just somehow start off well, and just like I said, the confidence is a huge thing. This team hasn't had it. They haven't won games, so you got to learn how to win again. So early in the year, you can do that. Then then when you get some tough games and some tough opponents in November and late October, you can kind of battle your way through here. And it's just the Big Ten. You're going to have to win football games 17-13. That's just the way it is. So they can get off to a good start. I like their chances of getting to 7 wins. You just look at it. I mean, other than Michigan, I don't see anyone who they can't beat. Maybe Wisconsin's going to be tough later, but they're dealing with a new coach, a new system. Get Iowa. We beat Iowa at their place last year, and they could have won the West to go to the Big Ten. So I can't doubt that at all. It's just you can't stub your toe early on. You got to stay healthy, and there's plenty of winnable games. So I think getting to 7 is definitely realistic. Just trying to get to 8, 9, trying to get that double-digit mark. I'm not even looking that far ahead, but getting to 7 is very, very realistic in my opinion.
Depth of talent. We've got all sorts of transfers that are in. You got new systems, but I think offensively, it should be pretty cut and dry, boiled down. Be able to run the football, be able to make some hay with some deep shots, and run the football consistently. Sounds all easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely. It sounds super easy. In early June, you just don't. You've hit kind of the nail on the head. You don't know exactly what we've seen a little bit what it's going to look like in the spring game, but you don't know what exactly is gonna pan out and how things are gonna work. How players are going to react to some negative situations, and how the staff's going to react to, once they get out of this honeymoon period, how they're going to react to a bad loss and all that stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see, but that's the fun part about it. It's fun this time of year to look at the schedule, and we'll keep doing it year in and year out to predict wins and losses. But it's there, man. It's they don't have to, go guns a-blazing and catch lightning in a bottle by any means. I think there's enough talent there. Depth is a little bit of an issue, but take care of the football, own a time of possession, get off the field on third downs. It's pretty simple football, but I know how simple it's been. We've struggled to do it here the last 4, 5, 6 years, but it's not too unrealistic. I mean, getting to a bowl game is a very realistic expectation in 2023.
Jay Moore is with us here at Hail Varsity Radio, and completely hypothetical here, Jay, but Nebraska, let's say they start the season 2-0. Is it weird to say that there could be some adversity they face and that they actually have to deal with hype around the program? Like, if Nebraska starts the season 2-0, the whole state of Nebraska is going to be on like red alert of, oh, Matt Rule's got them back, Kool-Aid drinking everywhere. Like, isn't that weird to say that at Nebraska, it's been that long since this team has had to deal with hype around the football program, actually about on-the-field results rather than off-season, that could be a bit of adversity they'd have to face in this season. That's way down the road. It's a complete hypothetical question, but is that not crazy to think about?
Yeah, a little bit. I think if they played Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech first, I'll have to worry probably about that hype too much. They went 2-0, but you play Minnesota and you play Dion and Colorado in week 2 at both away games as well. Let's not forget that. So a little bit, I think, they knocked both of them off early on. I hope they don't get a little too far over their skis, and I can imagine confidence being too big of an issue, but you're going to have some media coverage and you're going to have people talking about, what could potentially come out of this, and what, how quick Matt Rule's turned this thing around, and how quick he did it at Baylor, how quick he did it at Temple. So it's a funny thing to think about, but it wouldn't be out of the ordinary, in my opinion, that they go 2-0 against two decent opponents on the road, that people are going to be probably pounding their chests a little bit and feeling pretty good about themselves.
How did coaches keep you guys grounded? How did the locker room stay grounded? Because you've seen it. You've seen a big win or a wow win by a program, and it's happened to great coaches. So it's not anything out of the ordinary. But you get a big head and you have a bad week of practice and you're on upset alert because you don't follow through after the big win and you get stung by somebody. And that's real possible in the Big Ten week in, week out. Yeah.
I think consistency is the biggest thing that coaches try to get across. You got to approach every week, every game the same way. It doesn't matter if you're playing Michigan or you're playing Louisiana Tech. They have scholarships too. They have a really good coaching staff. They're recruiting high-level recruits. Hey, and a lot of times coaches will do a good job of going back in history too and pulling up games where maybe Northern Illinois or Louisiana Tech knocked off a team. I remember we played Nicholls State my senior year, and that was a hard one to get up for because we played at USC the week after. But coaches showed that Nicholls State beat Indiana the previous year, at Indiana. So it gets your attention a little bit. You got to respect your opponents. You got to prepare. Again, it's the same. You got to approach it week in and week out. I'm going to take everything and just try to get better. I'm going to take every rep and try to get better every rep. I'm going to focus on my fundamentals, my keys, everything. I'm not going to overlook it. It's just committing yourself and having a consistent process. And if you have to tweak it as the season goes along, so be it. But I think consistency is the biggest thing. Not, one practice is no bigger than the other. Not one game's bigger than the other. They're all the same. I think that's what most staffs do, is just try to approach it from that, because you can easily get wrapped up in that, especially coming out of non-conference into conference play, or even like in the SEC where they'll throw in a non-conference game in the middle of the week or later in the year, something like that too. So again, just promoting and preaching that consistency, and no team's bigger than one another, and just prepare the same way week in and week out. And if you do that, you kind of let where the chips fall, and if you do it the right way, you're probably going to be on top more than not.
Jay, the off-season conditioning program began last week down on campus, and I want to get your thoughts. How important are the next, I guess it's going to be 7 weeks now that we've reached Monday. How important are the 7 coming weeks going to be in terms of Nebraska's success for this season? I mean, when you compare summer conditioning to spring football and winter workouts, how important is this time?
It's important. It's very important. Spring ball was a way to implement, systems and coaching philosophies and understanding what they want and what they look for. Now it's getting in shape, trying to get in close to football shape as you possibly be. They can run all you want, but still the only way to get in football shape is you have to go play football. But they're going to get us as best in shape and get prepared, as well for the season as they can. And then, offensively, you're going to have 7-on-7 throwing sessions. So that's a way for, the wide receivers, tight ends, and quarterbacks to work together, and then the secondary, linebackers, safeties, and cornerbacks to work together as well. Then you got offensive line and defensive line. They're kind of doing some stuff on their own. It's hard to do things against each other without any pads on, realistically, for the O-line and D-linemen. But again, it's finding leaders, it's preparing yourself and knowing, because they're going to push them. You got to push your bodies to some pretty crazy extremes, on that turf, at 8 o'clock in the morning or whenever they're running, 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's not too, it's going to be hot. It's going to be, that turf is an extra 20, 30 degrees hotter, and you got to push yourself and get yourself ready. So it's important. It's just as important as spring ball and everything else. It's just a different phase, a different dynamic of getting ready for the season. And it's Coach Campbell's time to get these guys ready and get this process going of becoming a better football team.
Jay, last thought, Cincinnati Bengals, Zach Taylor, your dear friend, your late-night burrito run partner. He has cut 2 weeks off of the off-season OTAs. He's trying to get keep his team fresh, have them fresh into the fall and a long NFL season to get back for a Super Bowl run, get the players extra rest. So how many game balls has he been given already?
I would say a lot by the especially the veterans in that locker room. It's pretty, that article on Sports Illustrated. So it's pretty fascinating. I think anymore with all the data and technology out there that, guys are wearing, you see Nebraska guys, the catapult, I think that's what it's called, that they're, it's almost like a tank top with this like GPS sensor in it, or they put it in their shoulder pads, whatever. It measures everything. You know exactly what they're doing, just like if you're wearing a smartwatch, working out or whatever you're doing. So that having that, you just see how to, pace guys. And this isn't, that NFL season is the biggest, longest grind at any sport. Maybe 82 games in basketball is close, but man, you just don't get that beating that you get physically, especially if you go deep in the playoffs like the Bengals have, the last 2 years, making the Super Bowl and then to the AFC Championship game. So you have to learn to, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And they have a pretty veteran-led team. They're not young, so it's not like they need to get some reps. They have guys, they know what they can do, man. They got the talent in there. They know they can go on the field for an hour and get a lot done. You don't need to be out there for 2 hours beating yourself up. There's some coaches that can they love it. They love practicing the grind so much that you can easily wear guys out, and you can easily do that, especially in the NFL. But it's just smart on Zach's part and his ability to adapt and just, again, he's just trying to make another late season run and get to the Super Bowl, which, I think majority of us fully expect the Bengals to be there.
Jay Moore with us, Blackshirt Husker NFLer at JMoore44, co-host Big Red Wrap-Up. Jay, have a good week. Thanks for a few minutes today.
Yep. Thanks, boys.
Good to spend time with Jay Moore. So this is what's moving in the world of college football. We'll spend some more time on it tomorrow, but you've got an agenda and an executive session with the University of Colorado Board of Regents that includes some legal advice on a specific matter for the Buffs. I think they're going to go move back to their old neighborhood.
Talked about that on Friday with Brady. Big 12 or Colorado Big 12 makes a lot of sense.
I think so. They'll get paid, and Dion can go recruit Texas. We'll wind down a Monday next.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, a Monday, Hail Varsity Radio. Be sure to lock in with the podcast. Subscribe to it. It's free. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Get the segment you want. If you want to hear Coach McBride's story about getting a tattoo, do so. He talked about that a little less than an hour ago with Mr. Charlie. Jay Moore there. The last couple of segments are Blackshirt Hour and just recapping the recruiting weekend for Nebraska in a lot of Hour 1. Email the show, chris@hailvarsity.com. As always, get your voice heard, too, via the stream, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. That's where you can watch all of the Hail Varsity Radio episodes. We're streaming live every day. Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle as well is where the video is posted to follow along. Can do that. But Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, the full show or the podcast there, the video portion, Hail Varsity YouTube. Tomorrow we are loaded up. We'll catch up with Mitch Sherman. He is down in Texas at Nebraska's satellite camp, so we'll get Mitch's take on things as he's up close and personal with Coach Rule and some of the staff members that went with. And then Bill Bender, Sporting News. We'll get his thoughts on the upcoming college football season, Nebraska specifically, and this new look Big 12 that maybe sooner rather than later with Colorado and all the folks in tweed jackets and bow ties, the emergency Regents meeting. I don't know if it's an emergency. They've been planning this for a while. They got to get out because no one's going to make any money. No one's going to buy the Pac-12 rights. It's been a joke. I mean, the Pac-12 After Dark's been the best thing ever.
Yeah, what was the rumor a couple months ago that the CW was looking to buy the Pac-12
They were
rights?
looking for a place to give them money to broadcast. And you have SC and UCLA leaving. You still have Oregon and Washington, which could put those two schools in play for a less than whole number if they want to join the Big Ten. You can take them, but don't give them full piece of the pie. Mm-hmm. Find an agreed number that's clearly better than what they're getting in the Pac-12, and maybe a little bit better than they get in the Big 12. The Big 12 was supposed to be down for the count forever, with A&M and Colorado and Nebraska leaving and Missouri leaving.
And now Texas and Oklahoma.
And Texas and OU are out.
Well, now they're screwed. They're never going to be the same. If you can go poll Colorado,
Utah and Arizona State, that's fine.
You're a serious conference again.
Absolutely. And they got Central Florida. They have BYU.
They have Cincinnati.
Hey, good for them. It's not SEC or Big Ten power, but it's not that they've been to a playoff. Oregon's a brand, assuming they would get a look. The Buffs help bump your academic standing. It's a high-level institution. Oregon and Washington. I don't know. If I'm Oregon and Washington, I'll look at the Big Ten first, for sure. But if the money's the same, full price in the Big 12 or three-quarters price, or dare I say half price with the Big Ten, I don't know. You got some decisions to make.
Well, it's going to be really interesting. An interesting summer for the Pac-12. All these schools can agree to leave the conference. The TV media rights deal's up next summer, so you can leave with no exit fee next summer. Mm-hmm. Going to be an interesting summer for the Pac-12 trying to keep their schools
what
around.
Does the Pac-12 become? The Mountain West? I mean, who's left standing? Oregon State?
I think the easy answer is they become the Pac-8.
Well, again, but yeah, who's coming with? Who's staying home? We'll talk to you tomorrow at 4 on Hail Varsity, presented by Currency.